Yeah, and you cut back to him now, and he's just a completely different person.
He's done.
He is.
He's Gran Torino.
And it's like, whoa, what happened to him? And it's interesting just to find out what went wrong, what turned him off from like everybody.
It's like that. It's like that great joke I love with the. It's like the Obama effect. He went from yes we can to man you do it. You know, I love. That's exactly where I like. That's what I thought of.
It's Sleepless with Steve and the Movie Book Club with your host, Steve Pulaski.
But now, more importantly, to the stuff that people really want to hear about. Little movie came out this weekend, made about $220 million opening weekend, so chances are you saw it. It made almost $500 million worldwide opening weekend, so there's a good chance somebody listening did see the brand new Star Wars, The Last Jedi.
Real quick, is this going to be spoiler free? Is this going to be spoiler light?
I think we can keep this spoiler free, at worst spoiler light. I think we can, because I mean
we've got to keep that in mind, everyone.
Indeed, it's a good thing that you registered that, because that is absolutely
because I know as soon as you said star and immediately like whoever was like the three people listening immediately just switched off.
Indeed. So I would say at worst we'll do a preordained or like a forewarned spoiler light, but I don't believe that I believe you can talk about this movie, especially in respects to the aesthetics and respect to the craft of it and the overall product without really spoiling much. I don't think this is going to be too much analysis based as it is criticism based. But Star Wars: The Last Jedi, Episode 8. Unbelievable we're already here, though, with Star Wars. You know, unbelievable. It just seems like just 2 years ago, The Force Awakens came out.
For the longest time, no one thought it was actually going to get this far.
I know, and it's really, there's so much to talk about with this, so much to talk about, and there's a lot of different layers we can kind of piece together. We probably will go into the box office analysis of this, the 2 o'clock hour, even though there's not, I don't believe, a whole ton to say about it that hasn't already been said, at least, in terms of we knew it was going to gross over $200 million.
It made a lot of money. Did you know that?
It's a massive hit, you know what I mean?
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
It's going to be commanding the box office till at least the end of next month. So there's not a ton to say in terms of analysis-wise towards the box office, but I mean, there is a lot of like this was one of the examples, we'll probably talk about this towards the end too, of like critical reception being greatly different from audience reception. I remember going to see this, I went to see it Friday morning, and for what stock you put in this, again, I just say it for fact, but Rotten Tomatoes at that time, at like when I saw the movie at like 9 o'clock in the morning, it was at like a 94 critically on Rotten Tomatoes, 94%. It was at like a 65 on Rotten Tomatoes for audience scores, and now it's rotten. Now it's like 54. Like it's
a knocked over bucket of popcorn is what it is.
It's amazing, I think. I had like comparatively, I think Force Awakens is like 87, 89. So like this is an outlier.
Both that and like Rogue One, both audience and critic scores are like in the 80s or above.
Yeah, it would surprise me.
I would love to see a metric. How many of those user reviews were submitted within 24 hours of the movie's release?
No, it's true. Do it back. How many user reviews have like one sentence and like 8 and like 5 of the 8 words in the sentence are adjectives? You know what I mean? That's what I look for.
Like somebody just submitted like right away, like this movie sucks, 1 star basically.
Half a star.
Totally, and then made a new account and it did the exact same thing.
Because you could do half a star too on Rotten Tomatoes. I don't put a lot of stock in it. I'm just letting you know. I mean, you don't have to look far, in my opinion, to like really catch the negative backlash that this movie has gotten from audiences and stuff like that.
How much? So I've seen it once, and it's been like 5 days since I've seen it. Joe, how about you?
2.
You've seen it twice.
I've seen it twice. Okay, I've only seen it once.
I saw it Thursday night, the night it came out, and then I took my mom Sunday to go see it.
No kidding. I only saw it once. I only did.
And both times, even though that percentage is low, both times the audience clapped at the end. So I'm just gonna throw that out there.
Mine was relatively meager. Like
it wasn't like every audience member, but there was like a steady clap, and then people dispersed.
That's how mine was. Because I saw it at 8:45 in the morning IMAX, and it was almost filled. Mm-hmm. It was at that hour too. It was almost filled. So it was pretty remarkable. Let's get into it though. Star Wars: The Last Jedi, directed by Rian Johnson, who you might remember was the director of Looper, was a real critically acclaimed sci-fi film as well, like kind of almost like a modern neo-noir sci-fi movie. He did that. He also did the movie Brick, which I surprisingly have not seen. That was a movie from several years ago. It was one of the first movies with Joseph Gordon-Levitt as well that he directed. And he's also directed a few episodes of Breaking Bad as well over the course
To me,
of
one of the best episodes, which is like Ozzy.
He did Ozymandias.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, really? He did? Okay. I've never watched the show, but I do know of that.
Okay, yeah, that's like an incredible episode. But go on.
No worries. But Rian Johnson wrote and directed the film. It stars Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher, Adam Driver, Daisy Ridley. Ton of great people in this movie. Truly a terrific ensemble. Joe, you've seen it twice. That's one more than each of us. Why don't you give the plot rundown, or at least kind of a vague, overarching synopsis of the film?
So this picks up literally like a day or maybe even hours right after episode 7.
Which is the first time sorry to cut you off, but that's like the first time that's ever happened in a Star Wars.
Yeah,
I
I know. Like, literally, as the movie starts, they are where their base was in episode 7, the Resistance. They are abandoning it because the new order, I almost said, the First Order is coming to attack their base, and they're evacuating there. So General Organa, played by Carrie Fisher, John Boyega, which is Finn, and Poe Dameron, Oscar Isaac, they're all evacuating all these rebels out of that base and trying to get to like some nearby planet that they can basically hide out at and wait for reinforcements. Meanwhile, like the First Order is just on their trail the entire time. The other thing that's happening in this movie is where we left off, basically at episode 7. Rey's basically training with Luke and learning the ways of the Force, and also being tempted by the dark side of the Force as well.
Indeed, they're on like this real secluded oceanic island. I think it's called Octu, I think, in the film, and they're like in this location. It's a very interesting location too, because it's like very scenic. You know what I mean? It's actually kind of like isolated from a lot of other things too. The film does take place mostly in space as well.
Yeah,
it's mostly
just 3 locations most of the time. Honestly,
there's not a lot of variety in terms of, I mean, compared to Force Awakens, where it had quite a few locations. Last Jedi really kind of keeps about maybe 65-70% of the film in space, you know, which is interesting, which is definitely something that I wasn't really expecting going into it. I knew very little going into this movie. I didn't read any reviews, you know, the vaguest of whispers on like Facebook and stuff.
Same here, yeah.
I really tried to go into this thing as blind as possible. And it's hard to do, you know what I mean, with a movie like this that's marketed to hell and stuff. Joe, why don't you give some of your general thoughts on the film so far? Like, what stood out to you, you know, positive, negative, what stood out to you upon watching it?
Well, okay, going off what I was describing as the plot. So this movie has 3 plot lines basically going on. You have Luke and Rey training, which to me is the best plot line in this movie. It deals with how Luke is looking at the Force right now, and how like he feels about the whole Jedi Temple, like the Jedi Order, everything. How he feels about it now after he failed an apprentice, which we know is Ben Solo, who's Kylo Ren's character, played by Adam Driver. He's like, you know, I'm kind of done with this. I'm going to teach you, but after that, I don't want anything to do with this anymore. I'm done with this whole Jedi stuff. I'm tired of everything. The other plot line is Poe Dameron and a new character played by Laura Headley, I think.
I believe so. Yes, I believe so.
Yeah, and General Organa, played by Carrie Fisher. There's a plot line going on there where the First Order is chasing them down, and they're trying to outrun them, and they're constantly butting heads with one another on what they should do to keep as many people as alive as possible.
Is this the lady with the purple hair?
Yeah.
Laura Dern, I think.
Laura Dern.
She was in Jurassic Park, I think.
Yeah, she was.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, she was also in 99 Homes too, one of the best films of 2 years ago. Yes,
And then
indeed.
the third plot line you have is Finn, played by John Boyega, and a new character, Rose.
Played by Kelly Marie Tran.
Yes.
Played by Kelly. I want to make sure I got that name.
They have to go to a casino planet to find a hacker to help them deal with the First Order, who they're trying to figure out, like, why are they chasing them? How are they able to locate where they're at? It's because they're being hacked, basically, and they need to, like, get distance between them so they can warp out of their area. And they're trying to find this hacker on a casino planet.
The code breaker. Hacker sounds really mean.
That's true. That's true. Okay.
That's what it was. Okay, because I think I put in my review like Code Cracker or something. Because I couldn't think of the actual. It was Code Breaker.
Code cracker.
You have 3 plot lines basically going on here. The one I said with Luke and Rey, I think, is the best. It's
Yes.
it's
Definitely the most impactful.
Yeah, it feels like Rian Johnson really wanted to focus on that plot line, and it actually feels like Rian Johnson wrote that. The second plot line with Poe and Leia and all the Resistance, basically, it's good. It has some problems. I can't get really into because of spoilers. Like, there's just some decisions that are made, and it's just like, you're kind of letting this guy off the hook with what decisions he's making. However, that casino plot line is very dreadful, and it brings up probably the worst parts about this film, which is the tone and the script.
Okay, finally we can kind of disagree a little bit because I think we operate in lockstep a little bit because we're both big movie fans and stuff like that. And Dom, I will go back to you as well.
Yeah, that's fine.
I do agree with you on the fact that the Rey and Luke plot line is probably the most interesting because it's also the most emotionally tied too.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And you got that anchor of emotion here as well. I aside from it being, we're gonna go back to this because the discussion of tone is gonna come up more often. I do think besides some moments of some really misplaced humor on Luke's behalf.
Definitely,
some
yeah.
very misplaced, parts. And I think there's humor misplaced all over the place. It's one of my biggest gripes with the film.
Do you think it's a Marvel effect?
Yes, I want to get into that. I do want to touch on that after I just make this quick point, though. Now, here's the thing, though, about that whole Casino Planet subplot, okay, though. I will say this, is that I liked that. I really did. I'm still one of the only people I can find that really thought that casino scene, that whole sequence in the casino was actually a lot of fun. And the reason I thought so is because, again, the one thing that I liked about, again, the Rey and Luke plot, that's where your emotions anchored in. That's where the legacy's anchored in more so, just with the Luke Skywalker character and Mark Hamill, of course. He is, in a lot of ways, he is the early trilogy, or he is the first trilogy.
Also, like, you're coming off of, like, the last time you saw him, Luke Skywalker's just like this big, hopeful guy, loves the Force and everything, and he's like looking hopeful. He's, everything. He's got this energy to him.
Just saved his dad.
Yeah, and you cut back to him now, and he's just a completely different person.
He's done.
He is.
He's Gran Torino.
And it's like, whoa, what happened to him? And it's interesting just to find out what went wrong, what turned him off from like everybody.
It's like that great joke I love with the. It's like the Obama effect. He went from "Yes, we can" to "Man, you do it." I love. That's exactly where I like. That's what I thought of. Now, here's the thing I liked about that intergalactic casino scene. Okay, that's got everybody aggravated. All right, I think that is the entertainment side of Star Wars that I like in these movies. I think that sequence goes from being like very lightly expository because it really doesn't have much gravitas in terms of the overall plot, but it exists purely as entertainment, and it kind of echoes like a sweetly textured little nod to like the versatility of these extended moments in Star Wars films that might not earn a place because they're totally tethered to the plot, but I think there's a real nice sort of like break in like narrative with that too, just to kind of be immersed in the environment as well. And maybe it was me getting tired of looking at space for 2.5 hours, but I like that intergalactic casino from like a design perspective.
The design of the casino was pretty cool,
and an ambience perspective. So I get why a lot of people don't like it, but I liked it in the moment. In that, I'm not going to say it's brilliantly written or anything, but in the moment I liked it a lot for what it showed Star Wars operating as like a very scenes with a lot of versatility to them, which I really like.
For me, the stuff that like just didn't work about that plotline is one, you're introduced to actually two characters in that plotline. Benicio del Toro's character is introduced through this plotline, and then you have Rose.
Yes.
And I honestly think both of those characters are written very poorly, and you don't really get a feel for either
Rose
of them.
especially, I would say. And
Rose, 100%.
My buddy kept referring to, my buddy's a huge Star Wars fan, he kept referring to her as like the Disney add-on, and that's what she really feels like here. Like, I wonder if Rian Johnson actually wrote her, or did like they say like, you want to maybe throw in somebody here. You know what I mean? That's what it feels like. She feels very tacked on. Dominic, I don't want to ignore you either. Give your kind of general thoughts on this too. Jump into this conversation.
No, it's fine. I agree that the Luke, Rey, and even Kylo, I'll even group those three in the same plot line.
Definitely.
Kylo Ren.
To me, that is quintessential Star Wars. Because there is mysticism, there is magic there, and it really cuts deep into that philosophy, which I really enjoyed. That was the best part of Empire for me.
Very reminiscent of, I was about to say, very reminiscent of Empire.
Yeah, and real quick, I really enjoy how this movie was not a copy of Empire Strikes Back. I think that's what everyone was worried about, because everyone said that Force Awakens was a copy of A New Hope, which, in my opinion, was necessary to get the taste of the prequels out of our mouths.
I agree.
Yeah. But
I'll defend that forever.
But I really enjoyed that plot line, and see the Finn and Rose plot, the casino plot line, essentially. It's so frustrating for me as well, because there was a lot of potential there. Yeah. Because to me that was almost a callback to like World War II espionage. Kind of that thing, almost like a Casablanca type of feel too.
There was a Casablanca feel to that.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
Actually hit the nail on the head right there.
Especially with the costumes harking back to this classy 40s type of thing, And again,
The intoxication of the environment, yes.
Right. And there's so much potential there. But again, the pacing, the tonal shifts, and really what killed it was the writing. Honestly, there's a lot of bad one-liners here.
There really
There
is.
are-
Particularly
yes.
from Finn, which is super disappointing because I really wanted to like Finn. I came out of Force Awakens liking everyone, honestly. Like,
Finn was my favorite character coming off of Force Awakens.
I
This
loved
time,
him. I love John Boyega. I loved him in Force Awakens too. I like the character though, like you guys are saying.
Yeah.
I like that as well.
He's something different because, like, okay, Rey is kind of reminiscent of Luke, and so is Poe, just a little bit.
Sure.
John Boyega's character Finn is something completely different. He's a stormtrooper that's turned to the Resistance. We've never really seen that happen. We've never seen a stormtrooper like switch sides.
He's
in
literally
Star
the
Wars.
first stormtrooper we've ever like faced their actual
And that's
face.
true. Yeah, we've actually never seen a stormtrooper's face. Like he's the first person that we've seen take the mask off and actually be like, "I'm not with any of this. This creeps me out. I'm scared of everything."
The humanity behind that.
Yeah.
I loved Finn in Force Awakens. I mean, some people I talked to weren't so like enthused with him. I thought he was great, and that's the biggest gripe I think I have with this film is that it adopts the kind of like you mentioned it, Dom, Marvel brand humor that has like this cloying desire to end every scene in a punchline.
That or if a scene ends like very dramatically on a sad note or something, it's got to cut to something funny right away.
And it starts. The first like quip is like 5 minutes into the movie,
And it's
cringy, and it's bad, and it's it's flat out bad. And I mean that's the problem that I think a lot of people have with this is that for starters, I'll just say this is that the success rate of humor in Marvel films, because that's I think what we're drawing a lot of comparison to, is, in my opinion, around a coin flip. Now, the lighthearted humor has been, at the same time, since the dawn of the cinematic universe of Marvel, Iron Man, the humor has been incorporated in every Marvel movie in some way. Whether you like it or not, it's there. There are movies maybe where it's not like as a big of a factor.
Winter Soldier, Civil War.
Winter Soldier, absolutely, but it's there. But Star Wars hasn't included humor nearly as much, if really at all. And it dates back to a time when, like, science fiction and fantasy movies, they didn't feel the need to undercut, in my opinion, their legitimacy by adding, like, jokes or, or something like that, or like, these quips or these one-liners and stuff. And I think I think in part it like it's Johnson in a way having a little bit of a lack of confidence and his like desire to be contemporary and fit the mold of like a blockbuster in the modern day.
I think you did nail on the head because that Marvel humor is really what makes a Marvel movie in my opinion.
Yes.
It colors all of these movies in the same palette. As you said, there's different shades, whatever, but it permeates every single Marvel movie. And I feel like Disney, Rian Johnson, whoever was involved with installing that humor there, just tried to splash a whole bunch of that color onto Star Wars, and it did not mesh well at all. It does not blend well as well as
and
everyone,
it's probably the most
as they were hoping.
it's probably the most critical misstep of this new trilogy thus far.
It really is.
So.
It really hinders the writing because whenever you insert that kind of a joke, it takes a while for the pacing to regain its footing, and by then we've already hit another joke.
And like I said, it undercuts your legitimacy. Go, Joe.
The problem with it is that Rian Johnson came out and said, I wanted to do something really different with Star Wars. I want to do he said I kind of looked at Empire Strikes Back and I was like, what if I make a film that just does the opposite of that? Like a lot of times, just throws in a lot of twists and turns and whatnot. And
Episode 8, screw your theories.
Yeah, basically.
Which is admirable.
It's a risk, and I admire him for taking that risk, honestly. Because with Star Wars fans, if their fan theories don't go the way they want, they will complain, and you can go on the internet and you can see it for yourself.
Then if they do, they'll say it's too predictable.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. That's what it is.
There's no winning. Yeah,
you can't win at all. So you have his writing here and everything that he's trying to do something different. But then you have I think Disney stepping in and saying, no, we need this to be in this film. We need these comedy scenes in here. We need these scenes to be in here. We need these jokes to be in here. We need certain things to happen with BB-8, because to me BB-8, I loved him in Force Awakens. In here, I thought he was a little bit out of control.
He's overpowered.
Yeah,
he's OP as hell.
He is.
Hijack stuff. He he manages to tie 3 guards. I don't know how. He's a ball droid. How does he tie 3 guards? It's light spoiler, but it's just ridiculous.
They kind of catered to his meme popularity, I think.
It really is. And you see stuff like that, and it does not match the tone that Johnson's setting up with the Luke and Rey plotline and
if
the
we're
Kylo
gonna,
plotline
if we're
as
gonna
well.
continue on this trajectory, you can expect episode 9 to like make porgs as significant as Ewoks in the next one. If we're continuing on this, like what the trajectory suggests and whatnot. But no, this movie's not without its flaws. Like I kind of loathe the people that like are saying this is the worst thing that could have ever happened to Star
No,
Wars. But I also
absolutely not.
But I also in a way don't like the people that are trying to say that this is as good or better than Empire Strikes Back.
To me, both sides are being very hyperbolic.
Yes.
That's in my opinion too. I think both extremes here are very off base. I really do, and I'm not saying their opinions are wrong, but I'm saying that like there's a bit of reactionary, element to this.
Yeah. They're feeding off each other.
I
honestly.
think so. I really think so. Yeah, because one side enables the other. That's what it seems like. It's this back and forth.
Because I've been paying attention to it all weekend.
You can't escape it.
You can't. And
I've
the minute you
tried.
sign Facebook, comicbook.com, everything, just like blasting in my face.
It's a cultural event, which is what I love about Star
Yeah.
Wars. Honestly,
Yeah.
They announced Rian Johnson's making another trilogy of like
which I want to harp back on
10,
that
11,
later.
12.
Yeah.
Right? 10, 11,
No,
12.
it's going to be not
Or-
connected to this whatsoever.
That's even better. But honestly, they could make Star Wars Episode 50, and I wouldn't get tired of it. If they do that with Marvel, where it's like Marvel Phase 3, and like, okay, I'm getting a little tired of this. But Star Wars, to me, it's indefatigable, which is opposite of fatigued. It will permeate American life, movie life.
it's in American History
for
Museum.
the annals of cinema history, and I'm totally fine with that. To me, it's like Christmas. It's like every year we do Christmas, and honestly, I don't want Star Wars every year, but
Well, you're going to get it.
yeah, eventually. Then that kind of sucks, and maybe I have a problem with the frequency of it, but I do not mind there being somewhere down the line a Star Wars sequel. I'm okay with that.
Not to deviate too far off this plot, but I mean, is I saw a poster. Is Solo really coming out in May?
Yeah.
Like, are they gonna keep that date?
I don't know why they won't push it back after, what happened with the previous
I kind of
directors.
think they might. Like, I cannot see that thing coming out so early. Like, I don't know why. I don't know why you would have it come out that early. Why not keep with like the November, December, Q4? Trade like again, just for not only consistency's sake but digestion's sake.
They pushed back Episode 9 back to December because that was also supposed to come out in May of 2019.
I think they're going to push this one back too. One, because there's production problems, right?
Yeah.
With the directors and whatnot. Two, to me, Star Wars has become kind of this December or like this Christmas, season thing, which to me is awesome. Like I'm totally fine with that. Again, 5 years from now, maybe I'll get really tired of the frequency of it, and maybe like every December, like okay, maybe I'm kind of done with this. But the fact that there's always a Star Wars movie being planned somewhere down the line, again, I'm totally fine with that.
I got a hard time believing that. I'll be very surprised if that comes out. If Solo comes out the 25th of May, like it's scheduled to. I just don't.
I think they should push it back because not that this is getting like a ton of negative reception like from critics, but like fan base wise, it seems split.
There needs to be a cool down period. This is going to be in theaters till March anyway.
Yeah.
So like, you know what I mean? It's going to be in theaters.
The minute
till March.
this leaves, Solo will be entering in.
It will be. I mean, hell, Force Awakens lasted a good 6 months.
Yeah.
I knew it was going to as well. But anyway, so as far as we'll continue on with like The Last Jedi, because we don't want to divulge too many plot specifics too and stuff like that, because there's still people that kind of want to either haven't seen it or they just want to there's a different kind of audience here for this as well. But I admire Rian Johnson a lot for taking risks, and what I saw in this, because I've only ever seen Looper of his movies, the one thing that I saw in this in Last Jedi that I really liked, and it really leaves me very hopeful for more Rian Johnson films going forward, is that he clearly puts a lot of thought into the composition of a scene.
Oh yeah,
into like what he wants the camera to do, what he wants the camera to show, and as Martin Scorsese said, debatably more important, what he doesn't want the camera to show. And I like that a lot. I thought it was one of the first comparisons I heard of the original or of the Last Jedi before I saw it, and I really was apprehensive to it. But I can really agree. There's a lot of Akira Kurosawa in this movie in terms of locations and in terms of the way like rain and like different darker atmospheres are portrayed. There's like a tone and a visual tone poem kind of a thing going on here that like echoes the work of Kurosawa in a very nuanced way, but it doesn't like supersede the fact that like Rian Johnson's vision, nor does it like tread on imitation. I think this is a gorgeous looking movie and a very thoughtfully composed movie.
There's some beautiful imagery in what, in my opinion, is one of the best moments in the history of Star Wars.
Where they
And
cut the
everyone,
sound.
yeah, everyone's gonna leave the theater with that scene in mind.
Yeah,
And there's a couple
yeah.
more scenes too, involving slow motion, even, which I didn't think I'd ever say in a Star Wars movie. But hey, that's awesome. Again, some beautiful visual stuff, and even some great moments character-wise in this movie. I know we're harping on this movie a lot, and rightfully so, because it's a juggernaut. But at
Yeah,
the
we
same
haven't taken a break yet. I don't mind though, because we got to.
Oh, I don't mind
I don't
either.
want to
We got a
disrupt.
lot,
I don't
so.
want to. Yeah, exactly. We got a half hour left. I don't want to disrupt it.
But I don't know. Maybe we should switch to the positives now, because
Okay, well, I can start off with this.
yeah, go ahead.
For those of you who, for me though, at least, for those of you who did enjoy Kylo Ren's character, which I did in Force Awakens, I felt like he could have been improved a lot more, gotten more development. In this film, he is his own character by the end, and I loved it. Like by the end of this film, he becomes something of his own. He's not a Darth Vader like wannabe. He is something of his own now by the end of this film, and that's like the one thing I'm going into Episode 9 looking forward to is seeing what he's going to be doing next.
Exactly. He
No,
went
I
from the
wholeheartedly
weakest
agree.
character, in my opinion, the weakest character in Force Awakens, to the best character out of rival with
Yeah.
Luke in this one.
Because we can lament the fact, in my opinion, and it's worth lamenting in a way, is like the way that Finn doesn't take the course I think a lot of us were hoping for.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the two characters I think that really come alive here. Well, first off, Rey doesn't in the way that you think, but her presence is still significant. I think that this is the calm before the storm in terms of the Rey character. I think we're going to get a lot more of her in 9, which I'm looking forward to. But I think the two that this movie really does come alive for and really kind of puts them into good perspective is not only Kylo Ren, but Poe as well.
Yeah.
Poe becomes, I think, a lot more of a
You see how
player
really
here, too.
passionate he is about the Resistance,
Yeah.
like in this film a lot.
Yeah.
Even though like there are some things, like I said, he does that are very questionable. Then we go, you guys are gonna let him off doing that? I mean,
Yeah, there's a couple interesting sequences. I'm surprised they let him off the hook so easy and whatnot. But I think Kylo Ren, though, especially with like the telepathic abilities that become that surface, you know what I mean, with this character and stuff like that too, which prompts even more theories. I think that they really Kylo Ren has really evolved in a way I'm glad he didn't in Force Awakens, because again, like a negative this is how like negatives kind of turn into positives or kind of become moot points later on. It's like I remember critiquing in Force Awakens how I'm like, again, it's like Marvel syndrome. They don't really put together a decent enough credible villain, but at the same time they laid the groundwork, and that's what really J.J. Abrams was about with Force, in my opinion, was laying groundwork.
it seemed like that was like basically it
this.
with Force Awakens coming into this now.
Or to have the next director or the next writer, really take it off on their own terms. And I think that really adds to Kylo Ren's character, because it's like there's nothing to lose though, because we don't really have a ton with this character as of now going into this movie. So I think he comes to life very well, and he's like oddly sympathetic at times too.
Yeah.
In terms of like trying to figure out what his role is in the First Order and whatnot. I liked him a lot, and I think a lot of it to the glory not only to Johnson but Adam Driver.
And he's the wild card. Honestly, like
Yeah.
you don't know how he's gonna turn out in terms of his arc, or where he's gonna land. How even his relationship with the other characters. It's a complete toss up. And to me, that's
His relationship-
makes it really compelling.
His relationship between with him and Rey,
Yeah.
because they both have a very significant area. They're both very significant in that plot line involving Luke, and like his relationship with Rey is just like fascinating to watch. Honestly, like just seeing like how similar the two are. Honestly, to me, like I said, best parts of the movie is that plot line for that reason.
I could have my own theory with that, but I'll save you the nonsense in that respect. But again, I think that there are elements in this movie that are strong enough, well put together enough, and formed enough to kind of overcome the shortcomings. Do you guys agree or disagree?
The stuff that works here, it really carries the film. To me, like I said, that plot line really strengthens it really carries all, because to me the first half of this film was weak for me. The second half for me was a much better improvement, and the Luke and Rey plot line I think carries a lot of this movie's like baggage that's like holding it down basically.
Dom, you agree?
Yeah, a little bit, because to me, I can't even do like, first half was better than the second half, or vice versa, because
same.
It's all over the place in terms of its quality, because it does a lot of jumping. At least if I remember, it does a lot of jumping between the three plot lines, and
It felt like for me in the first half, there's a lot more jumping around because they're all spread out.
Okay.
Near the second half is where everybody's meeting up.
And you're kind of
basically.
watching like Poe and Finn and Rose operate on like the offense of the whole thing.
Yeah.
And then you're
Yeah.
cutting back to Leia and everything, kind of operating, more defensively. And, there's different mindsets of it.
If I can just add this real quick. Carrie Fisher, this is her final performance because she did not film anything for episode 9.
She did.
I think it's a great last performance. Honestly.
did too.
She did a great job, like being that general who has the weight of all these lives on her shoulders.
Yeah, and she's part of too. And I love during the credits when it says in loving memory of our princess, Carrie Fisher, which is one, which is about a year ago she died. It's about a year ago, I think next week or so that she died. But the thing is, I really liked Leia because the great thing about Carrie Fisher's performance here, and I know there's people that are gonna be like, oh, you're just saying it because she's dead. No, here's the thing with Fisher's performance is that you can sense a real desperation in her character, and couple that with the other characters, I think it bleeds over really well. That's what I like. That's one of the biggest things too I liked about this movie. Apart from the composition, apart from some moments, like some key details, is that I like the sense of the desperation and the emotion in the character. Even though you can make the argument that Finn's not written well, Rose is underwritten, Poe's questionable at sometimes, but he's largely likable. Even though you could make those arguments, I think that as far as the Resistance goes, in all of the performances here on a performance basis, they convey a really good sense of passion and desperation for their characters. Regardless of how they're written, in my opinion.
Yeah, performance-wise, I think everyone pretty much hit it out of the park except maybe Rose. But even then, you needed strong writing to buoy.
She really hasn't been
that
in
whole
much.
plot line.
She hasn't been in much, truthfully.
I feel so bad for her too because
I'm looking at her.
This is such a high-profile thing.
Yeah.
I'm looking at her. I'm looking at her like profile and stuff like that. They're really. She does. This is really her first thing. I mean, everything else is like either short film or like just random low budget, no budget thing. Like she was on a couple episodes, or she was on one episode of Comedy Bang Bang, if you know what that is. She was on the show Sing It as well with Missy Powell, which lasted like a week. You know what I mean? So it's like she hasn't done a lot.
And it sucks because you look at someone like Daisy Ridley who hasn't done a whole lot, and when she comes into Star Wars. Fantastic.
This is the franchise for breakout roles.
Yeah, this
honestly.
really is.
Historically
you go
speaking.
back to the original trilogy, and it was that.
Yeah.
Boyega had a little bit more experience coming into
Attack
this.
of the Block, stuff
Attack
like
the
that.
Block, yeah, that's the one that was this big one and stuff.
But he was still relatively unknown.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and obviously Oscar Isaac is one of the best actors working today, and stuff like that. Lupita Nyong'o too is in this as well, who won the Oscar for 12 Years a Slave, and she's good in this too for what she does and stuff. It's a really good performance level movie where it's like even the weaker performances, like Benicio del Toro, they're more in like Kelly Marie Tran, who played Rose. You can't really, and in my opinion, there's some ways too where it's like I don't think del Toro and Tran deserve all the blame too. I don't think their characters are the best written. So like, at the same time, it's nobody here is unwatchable. You know what I mean? Nobody here like disrupts the entire.
There's not a Jar Jar Binks.
There really isn't. There really isn't. Now some people have said that like Rose is worse than Jar Jar, but I wouldn't go that far.
Shut up.
That's exactly.
You need to watch those movies again. Like this beats all the prequels.
Yeah.
But to me,
It
okay,
does.
now we're doing rankings because that's the natural thing to do at
That's
this
the
point.
natural thing to do. Yeah,
But
of course.
I don't think I think it beats all the prequels, but I don't think it beats any of the original trilogy. And I know that's a extremely middle of the road kind of thing, but there's so much to like and there's so much to really not like about this movie, honestly speaking.
It is. It's just middle of the road, though. You're absolutely right.
It's a middle of the road movie. Almost,
I'll say too.
almost, which is hilarious because real quick.
No
It winds up being this middle of the road thing while also being polarizing because it did what everyone was harping on with Force Awakens, which was taking risks. So this movie actually did take quite a few risks. The problem is those risks were very sloppily handled. Actually, no, I take that back. Let me think about this more. Was it sloppily handled, or was it buoyed, or was it not buoyed? Dragged down, anchored down in a bad way by by the Marvel-esque humor, by the safety.
I
Maybe
think
it's that.
I think the humor really hinders this movie. I
Yeah.
think the humor is the most glaring offense at
Yeah.
all. Apart from whatever kind of nitpick motivation you could say, like Poe wouldn't do that, Finn wouldn't wear white after Labor Day. Whatever you're gonna say, whatever you're gonna say here, okay? Whatever nitpick you have, I think the most egregious failure, and I'll use the F word here, failure. I think the most egregious failure with the movie is the humor, and I wouldn't say that if I didn't think that it wasn't part of the movie. But it's a lot here, and,
Yeah.
and it's not. And I don't think one joke really lands in this movie. Honestly, I hate to be that person. I don't recall like laughing at a single thing in this movie that was supposed to be played for humor.
There was
I don't think so.
there was like one or two actual jokes that I enjoyed. But yeah, the rest it's a
How long did you
low
enjoy them
accuracy.
for? You know what I mean? Like,
That's
did you,
true.
you know? Can you even remember them now?
I can remember the one.
You can
I
remember the one.
There was
one.
like 3 for me.
There was like 3 for me.
I can count them on one hand, basically, like the
Yeah.
jokes that probably worked.
The
for
fact
me.
that we can cherry pick them is probably telling.
Yeah.
Yeah, it did not click with me at all. Mainly because I wasn't expecting it, and B, I didn't want it to begin with. But
It sucks too because you look at Force Awakens and it handled its humor way better.
Now, you know, you actually brought up what I wanted to say too. But I wanted to make sure I at least get this in here too before we go into like final thoughts and everything. Hard to believe. But Force Awakens, though, the thing that I like about The Last Jedi, and I will give credit for The Last Jedi too, in a lot of respects, is that The Force Awakens, and I liked it. I really did. I actually go back and I see some scenes of it, whether I catch them on TV or I've seen them before. Hell, you can go to like Best Buy. It's like the sample movie to advertise the HD TV, you know. And I watch certain scenes from Force Awakens again, and I love it. I get really wrapped up in it. And like the thing with Force Awakens, though. And this is not an original real thing to say, but I know other people have said it, is that it still felt like it was constructed by a plethora of like producers and studio heads that were carefully piecing together a Star Wars film that would be easy for the masses to digest and built from the same like narrative mold for like A New Hope to ease that, you know, to ease that generation that was disillusioned by the prequels back in. It felt like it was kind of constructed more by like a group of people.
Designed by committee is the term.
Designed by committee, yes. More so than Last Jedi, which I honestly believe, like it or not, Rian Johnson really has a vision. You can't say he doesn't. He's got a vision, whether it's sloppy in your opinion, whether it's scattershot, whether like it comes out to be very staccato in terms of the way it handles its different plot lines. He's got a vision. He came with this with a very interesting idea, and I think that's, again, not knocking Force Awakens for that, but I think this movie is really the first Star Wars recently, or at least the last 3 new ones, to come out that actually feels like it has a tangible vision and like a direction, or at least an attempt to make one.
Yeah, it sucks because the vision is there, absolutely, but then the script, like 80% of the time, and I'm not a major connoisseur of film, but what I've noticed more and more as I watch more and more movies is you really can't even blame the actors so often. 80% of the time,
Yes.
it's more of the script, and then after that, it kind of handles into the actors' hands.
I say that all the time, and there's a wonder why I think in almost every... What have I written now? Almost 3,000 reviews, I think, 3,000 out of the 3,000 reviews that I've written, I bet you can go back and, like, if you could control F all of them, you can probably find in, like, 2,700 or 2,800 of them, I would go that far to say, I've mentioned the word writing or screenwriting or script or something like that. Because you really have to look at it from that writing perspective, too. Of course there's cases where it's, like, good actors, and I'm not saying this is a requirement for actors, but actors can sometimes disguise bad material.
Yeah.
Like again, I know this may sound off base, but you ever look at like a romantic comedy like Bad Moms Christmas? A Bad Moms Christmas is a good example, honestly. No, seriously, it's a good example for this. Lively actors, wonderful, you know, comedians and stuff, can handle humor very well. They can make you think that you've just seen a good movie when you haven't, and that's what that's how you know that, like, in their own way, like Mila Kunis and Katherine Heigl and all these other, you know, these actresses and stuff like that, they're good actresses in that level because they can disguise bad material. Where here, it's not that anybody here is bad, but at a certain point it starts to show. You know what I mean? At a certain point it starts to come through. Be it like, again, I think Joe really picked up on it, the decisions on part of the characters, where it's like, you know, that's not the actors. You know, that's that comes back and falls onto Johnson, because a lion's weight of this movie is Johnson's baby, you know, in that respect. So I love it. We almost talked for the entire hour. Didn't take a single break. I love it because this is definitely an important movie. I didn't want to disrupt the flow of conversation. Dominic, I'm going to go to you. We're going to go Dominic, then you, Joe, then myself. Take a couple minutes and whatnot. Take your time and sort of summarize the experience of Star Wars: The Last Jedi. Your overall thoughts, your overall gripes, praise, final star rating out of 4, please.
It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. It was the Last Jedi. No, that kind of does sum up my view on the film because it's a conflict. It's a conflict as strong as Kylo Ren's conflict in this movie. I'm just gonna keep pulling metaphor after metaphor, honestly. But I appreciate this film because it took risks. Did those risks play out? I don't think so, honestly. But I appreciate where they went, especially in the age of. I always like to zoom out and think of the era of films that we're in compared to where we were before. And the 70s, late 70s and 80s, when George Lucas had such a huge influence and sway in Hollywood.
Incredible.
Absolutely astounding. That was a different time. Now we're in the age of Disney, who owns so much, and it's the age of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's the age of Star Wars. Everyone talks about the MCU being a thing. Star Wars was technically the first universe.
In a way, I would agree. I would agree with that.
It's the first cinematic universe, although they weren't planning it or it took a long time for them to actually plan it, as opposed to a ground up kind of thing. But is it adjusting to the times? Is Star Wars adjusting to these times? Kind of. It's trying to be artistic. It's trying to be groundbreaking in its own way, and that is the struggle of this trilogy. I'm really just trying to say something original here because honestly, my views come down the middle of the road. I don't even know if it's better than Force Awakens. If it's more watchable than Force Awakens, because to me, there's always going to be that. With The Last Jedi, there's always going to be those incredible highs and just really disappointing lows. Mm-hmm. And
you think that's the future of Star Wars under Disney?
Man, I don't know. There's going to be the struggle, and then we'll see what the Rian. I'm actually really looking forward to the Rian Johnson films now. Well, I mean, we'll see what happens after Solo. If I'm getting really tired of Star Wars after that, it's hard for me to say that, but you'll be surprised. But with the Rian Johnson movies, I think he deserves. I think when the reports and the stories comes out of this production of this movie, and we start to realize what was Disney, what was her name, Kathleen Kennedy.
There's always been rumors about deleted scenes in an extended cut.
Yeah, seriously.
Which naturally with any Star Wars now, there's going to be a 4-hour, 4.5 hour, and then they're going to have a 4.5 hour cut. Then they're going to come out with the special edition.
I would watch this director's cut over the Batman vs Superman director's
hell
cut.
Yeah.
Honestly,
hell yeah. Definitely. Notwithstanding that I like to spend time with these characters, too. Because I will say that they've really done a good job crafting these new characters and stuff like that. What's your final star rating, D?
My final star rating, because it's such a juggernaut. Star Wars is such a juggernaut. I will give it a disciplined 2.5 out of 4 stars.
Really? I was going to say, I thought you were going to aim
very
a little
tempered
bit
2.5 out of 4 stars. Tomorrow I'm going to wake up and be like, I should have given it a 3. The day after that, I should have given it a 2. And that's just what we're going to be.
Because you have to be hard on it in a way, because it is Star Wars, you know what I mean?
I mean, it made so much freaking money, so
and
it's not going to cry
staple.
at the end of the day.
You can't have modest expectations, in my opinion. Joe, your thoughts on The Last Jedi?
Okay, well, a film that focuses on balance, it has a hard time trying to find a balance with its tone throughout the entire movie.
He pre-wrote that.
Hey, shut up.
I liked it. No,
he cares.
That's a good one.
Overall, I liked it. I did, but Dom brings up really good points. There are lows here, and when you're in the lows, you are really in the low. It is bad. It is honestly shockingly bad sometimes. But when you get to the good parts of the movie, it can be really good. It feels fresh for Star Wars, which is amazing to say. When you're 8 episodes in, not even that, you have the spin-off films as well, Rogue One. So you're technically 9 films in, and you're getting something that feels kind of fresh with Star Wars, especially in the episodic films. I feel like if you were to cut about 30 to 45 minutes of this movie too, because this movie is long.
Yeah.
It's 2 hours and 35 minutes, I think. I think if you would have trimmed down a lot, you would have a great film on your hands, but due to like the tonal shifts, the poorly written and executed jokes, and like I said, I'm not the biggest fan of that casino plotline. It holds Last Jedi back from me from thinking that like what some fans are claiming to be the best one or something that's amazing. I think that Johnson, like you're saying, going to a new trilogy, I can't wait for that. Because to me, I think the biggest problem was Johnson had a vision for Star Wars, but I don't think it was right to put him in the middle chapter of a trilogy.
And then back to, because now it's going to be
Now it's
9,
going back to Abrams.
which
Now
is
it's
going
going
to
back
be
to
really
Abrams.
weird.
Yeah, really.
It really makes me just feel like, man, maybe Abrams should have just stuck with all three, honestly.
Yeah, at least that would have been a consistent thing.
Yeah. With his new trilogy, it's his vision from the start, and it's gonna be his vision to the finish. So I'm
Fingers
looking
crossed.
forward. I'm looking forward to that because the stuff that worked here that I felt like was truly him and not a Disney executive stepping in, I thought was amazing. Other than that, I liked the improvements with some characters like Kylo Ren. I loved Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher's performances in this movie. There is beautiful looking cinematography and imagery in this film. The last half for me was much better than the first half. There is an incredible lightsaber fight in this scene for me. I mean, in this film for me, that feels like I'm watching a samurai movie rather than a Star Wars film. I mean, it is brutal for a Star Wars film, and it made me clap at the end of it, along with the audience that was watching it the first
Executed
night.
very well.
It was executed very well, and it was shot well too, and just the choreograph was done well there too. I kept tossing back between 2.5 stars and 3 stars. And it's hard to say because, yeah, each day I wake up and I'm just like, man, I think I should be harder on it. Or, I'm just like, but I also appreciate what Johnson tried doing. For me, it barely scrapes on by that 3-star rating. It is scraping at it. So I'll give it 3 stars, but it is like the lowest.
2.75?
Yeah, the lowest of low 3 stars, honestly. I'm looking forward to what Johnson's going to do with his trilogy. But like to me, Force Awakens was a better film just because it was much tighter as a movie. It was tighter and just like... It was trimmed down. It was edited well. It was just tight.
Yeah, that's the one thing you can always trust with J.J. Abrams, I think, is he makes a very, like it or not, and I'm a huge fan of Super 8, he makes a really kind of compacted product that feels like everything that's been considered has been like considered over and over again. Every scene feels like it has a place, and that's fine. You know what I mean? To wrap up with a film, or to come out with a film that like you don't feel has any loose ends or anything that could have been done better. I think Abrams is good with that. Again, I admire The Last Jedi a lot for its vision. I think that it has, Rian Johnson attacked this with a real plan and purpose. He came at this with a real motivation to take on Star Wars, really make it something incredible, and really kind of continue the franchise in a different way. I think the film is modestly to moderately successful. I think it handles the characters, most of which well. I think when it does well is what it does really well is illustrating the growing progressive dynamic between Rey and Luke as the film goes on. I think that's very good. I think that Kylo Ren is tremendous here, and I think Poe also really finds himself to have a lot of gravitas in this film. On second thought, though, in second consideration too, in a way, I do think that there is a lot of bad tonal decisions in this movie, and I think like Joe was talking about the first half too. I think the first half of the movie it really struggles to kind of balance these plot lines, and then couple that with like the infusion of like Marvel brand humor, as we keep saying, that really throws off the movie in a way. I think it does what it at the end of the day, if it does what it needs to do, Last Jedi does what it needs to do. In terms of taking the series, trying to do something new with the series. Whether or not it succeeds, it was about time Star Wars was doing something that we didn't expect. And I think a lot of us can agree that we didn't expect what we saw when we saw it this weekend. I think that Johnson also comes to show that like great potential, a lofty budget, and like cherished source material at the end of the day doesn't mean a whole lot if you don't have like thoughtful craftsmanship and ideas put behind it to bring it to life. So I also really admire the visuals and the camera work that feel like, again, Kurosawa-esque, that feel like very considerate portraits in a way of what Johnson is trying to accomplish. I think it's really tremendous what he did. Also Steve Yedlin too, who does serve as cinematographer. I want to get that name out there. I thought it was a mostly satisfying film. I really did. I came out happy, And I hope that certain deterrents here do not become even bigger problems, though, come episode 9. So 3 out of 4 stars for me. Probably the most positive of the three of us. I give it 3 out of 4 stars, though. Perfectly acceptable in my opinion. Not without its flaws, though. I don't trust anybody that says this is a masterpiece. You know what I mean? Or somebody that says that this is like the flawless Star Wars movie. I don't trust anybody who says that. But I think it was a great discussion. Thanks for coming on, both of you.